Kicker's going to wear number 32 for you number folks out there.
I'm into it.
You're into it. Joe Marino on the Wester Hotline. Joe Marino, Locked On Bills podcast. Joe, what do you think? Kicker wearing 32.
You know, it wouldn't be my choice, but I'm not sure there's a lot of great options.
Yeah.
The single digits now go to everyone else. So I'm sure he's excited to get a jersey this week.
I see numbers in the 90s are becoming popular for kickers. I'm seeing a lot more.
Just go complete scorched earth with it, right? If it can't be a single digit, let's just get as far away as possible and act like we're a defensive lineman. I dig it.
Yeah. How about new rule? Every starting kicker just wears number 3. Let's just do that, right? Come on, here comes the kicker.
Are you stealing a number 3 from a good quarterback in the league? Is there a good quarterback that wears 3?
That's a good question. Who's the best player to wear number 3? I don't know. Anyway, Joe joining us. We'll talk a little bit about the Bills' win over the Patriots. Look forward to, of course, the Browns and the rest of the playoffs. And, Joe, we heard Sean McDermott there talking about, what they can do, their coaching staff, how they can adjust. And, boy, if adjustments aren't the story of the season for this defense, where to begin? Is the defense good? Is it good half the time? Is it a dreadful – what do you make of what we have seen this season from this Bills defense?
Well, I think you see a unit that has plenty of shortfalls, but a coaching staff that has done well to, as games move along, figure out what the other team's doing and help overcome those shortfalls. I think this team defensively really lacks defensive line impact. I think that they have – players in their secondary and Poyer and White that they have to scheme around efficiencies. Even Taron Johnson, there's been some regression there. And so I think you have a very flawed defense, whether that's from a personnel perspective, declining talent. Maybe you have some questions about just archetypes and how everything fits together. But ultimately, more times than not, this staff finds a way to put these guys in position late in games to get stops, to get takeaways. And they're able to kind of ride that. Now, I think there's been some fortune, like against this past week, where Josh McDaniels just stopped running the ball. There's really no explanation for it. He ran it 3 times in the second half. They were up by 21 points. And so, sometimes that's been very favorable. But ultimately, I think they're missing a lot on defense, and I think they're reliant on adjustments to kind of figure things out. Those adjustments are typically blitzing more, right?
Yeah.
The blitz rates are just a lot more in the second half. They're becoming more aggressive. They don't want to sit on their heels and die by a million paper cuts. They kind of go after it. I think that's led to some negative plays and some takeaways and some big stops late in games.
So for someone that I feel like a very common Bills fan take right now, and anyone like you or I would say, why don't they just build the defense out of the second half defense? Why are the problems showing up in the first half? Would it not work if they're blitzing more in second halves? Should they just do that earlier, or do you think that might come with problems?
Well, I think that's a very sound idea. I think that the challenge that the Bills have is maybe figuring out what the right ways to pressure is going to be, kind of figure out the matchups a little bit and go from there, where I think if there's a coaching criticism that I would have, it would be start faster, anticipate better what these teams are going to try to do to you. That way you can play better from the outset. But, the Bills have started games with a stop, with a 3-and-out. That has happened. But, more times than not, it's very leaky early on. And I think getting those tells are really important for the Bills to come up with the right pressure design and figure out, what matchups the defense is or the offense is trying to go after and kind of adjust from there. So I think being more anticipatory would be helpful. But, I think they show up every day pretty overmatched with what they have on the defensive side of the football against these opposing offenses.
From a personnel standpoint, do you feel like the Bills they're unpredictable in what they're going to do in the second half? We saw maybe Dan Orlovsky put a clip out where they're calling 8 different coverages, called it kind of the Rolodex of defenses. Is it going to get to a place, Joe, where you're worried about this defense in the postseason? They'll play better teams. Maybe more tendencies are out there. Maybe teams start to expect, all right, here's what they might do in the second half, because in the second half they start to operate differently. Is this something that ultimately you think could still get them beat?
For sure, yeah. I go back to the Brandon Beane notorious quote of, "Hey, when you lose in the playoffs, your biggest issues are pretty exposed." And I can see that being the way this all ends is that they weren't able to figure it out on defense, and they stayed leaky the whole game, and you just couldn't score enough to to get a win. And so I think it's going to come down to they're going to have to win some one-on-one matchups with their front. They're going to have big time pass rush wins where it's Rousseau versus a left tackle and he beats him. Bosa beats him. Someone on the inside just beats him. And I think that's where you get concerned, though. I don't think you see a lot of those one wins. It happens with Bosa, but everything else is kind of schemed up. You're trying to get free runners. You're running twists and stunts up front. It's coverage holds up, and you get a coverage sack. It's that type of stuff. And so, who's going to step up and win a one-on-one matchup in a key moment? I think that's unfortunately been the issue, and here we are again.
Yeah, that's the pass rush. Are we continuing to see, though, Joe, that the secondary is performing even without Benford? Like some way, shape, like Drake May got to his worst statistics of the season in a game. Yeah. So, how much credit should the secondary then deserve for that?
Tons, absolutely tons for this secondary to perform like it has without a pass rush is unbelievable. And usually those things go hand in hand, and they're holding up. I think the Bills have given up 200 yards passing to like 3 quarterbacks so far in 14 games this year. It's crazy with very little pass rush, especially over the last part of the season. And they have been very good with their coverage. I think Poyer in the lineup has really stabilized a lot of the zone spacing. Harrison, I think, has done a really good job with some one-on-one matchups in man coverage and kind of, taking some routes away. And obviously Benford's really elevated. Trey White's played well. I think this group has really solidified with their coverage. It'd be nice if the pass rush could complement it a little bit more in terms of, not everything being coverage sacks. It's like even when the Bills get sacks, or pressure, it's slow burn. It's really slow burn, and it stresses the coverage. And so I think there's a lot to be said about how well they've held up despite not having much impact at all rushing the passer.
Joe Marino joining us of the Locked On Bills podcast, mentioning the pass defense being pretty good, and the rush defense, it gets creased, as you say. It gets gashed. Yeah. I want to say regularly. It's been a big problem. What are the answers there? Is that not really coming? Is that consistently happening because of what's happening on the interior of the defensive line?
Yeah, I mean, you're playing a single gap defense, and when guys aren't in their gaps, it's a problem, especially when you couple that with, against the Patriots, you had some tackling issues, and you had some really poor angles from your safeties. I mean, Cole Bishop's angles downhill were deplorable against the Patriots, and that led to some of those big runs from Travion Henderson, just irreconcilable angles. And so when you get creased and your safety doesn't take a good angle, it's off to the races against a back with the type of speed that Travion Henderson has. I thought it had really improved that 3-week stretch prior to this game, and really the tackling was outstanding. I think the Bills just missed a couple of tackles in a 3-game stretch against the run, but then that showed up against New England, where Shaq Thompson missed 4 tackles. They missed 7 tackles against the run, and that doesn't even talk about your bad angles that you weren't even positioned to make a tackle. And so, defensive linemen that can't anchor against the run, tackling issues on the second level, and bad angles from a third level, you're going to get creased. You're going to give up explosive runs, and we saw exactly that against New England.
Which kind of gets to the unique state of this postseason, right? All the conversation is no Mahomes, no Burrow, maybe Lamar is not the same. Do you feel like previous versions of the Bills defense should be more worried about the elite quarterback, where this version of the Bills defense, you'd worry about different animals? Is Jacksonville or Denver, or I'm trying to think, usually we're afraid of the elite quarterback. Is this defense in a spot where it's a different kind of animal this time around?
I think for sure, Jeremy. And look at 3 of the 4 losses the Bills took this year were against Davis Mills, Michael Penix, and Tua. It's not like it's not been the marquee quarterbacks. Drake May in Week 5, was able to get the 1 game-winning drive of his career in that moment, an unbelievable drive starter. And certainly the Bills had their chances in that game despite making a ton of mistakes. It definitely feels a little bit different, but I almost wonder if that puts these teams more in running the ball mode, right? And realizing that if I'm whatever team, if I'm Jacksonville, I'm not inviting Trevor Lawrence to go haymaker to haymaker with Josh Allen in the playoffs. I'm going to run the ball with Travis Etienne and challenge the run defense. Whatever team that you could really insert into it, it's that they're going to have that type of mindset. And I wonder if that is potentially a disadvantage for the Bills, because I think that's what any team's going to show up and say, let's shorten the game, limit possessions, run the ball. They can't stop it. We'll keep Josh Allen on the sideline. Hope we can get a few stops on defense, in the red zone to hold them to field goals and see if we can win a football game. So, yeah, I think that is going to be the script for teams against Buffalo in the postseason.
Joe Marino with us from the Locked On Bills podcast. Also in this game, Joe, in the New England game, the offense started slow and then ran through 5 straight touchdown drives. What changed for you from the beginning to when they got rolling, or what did they figure out along the way?
Yeah, look, they did start slow, but, if Brandon Cooks just catches the ball like a normal receiver should, that's first play's a touchdown. He's wide open. He catches it in stride. He's got vertical leverage. It's a touchdown. He triple catches the ball and doesn't finish the play. Then you're in third and manageable on the second drive. Josh Palmer goes false start. You go from 3rd and 3 to 3rd and 8. Josh Allen gets sacked. I don't know that they started so slow as much as they just had a couple of really bad receiver errors that put drives behind the sticks. And, eventually they were able to snap out of it and score 5 consecutive touchdown drives. So I think it was more just, hey, you had a couple of errors that really killed you. And third down on that first series, after the Brandon Cooks drop, and Josh Allen had poor execution on third down, had 2 open receivers, turned down an open one, airmailed the second one, and you punt. So I think there was just some execution errors early. They had to settle in, and once they settled in, they obviously performed at a really high level and were two-dimensional throughout, which I think is a big testament to Joe Brady to be able to stick to that run game despite being down by 21 points. I think was really important for that offense stabilizing and them getting it done on Sunday.
We had talked about that with Sal earlier in the week. Like, even when they were down, they stayed committed to the run game. And maybe, Joe, the other thing that helped them do that is Ray Davis was giving them the ball, halfway down the field already, so they knew the drive wasn't going to take, 12 minutes.
Yeah, the return game with what Chris Tabor's done with the return units, really different type of schemes in this one. Ray Davis doing a good job executing really good blocking. There's some short fields, and I think the punting game was terrific. I think Wisnowski punted 4 times, 3 times within the 20, including that last one. Marcus Jones, the best punt returner in the league, has two returns for 5 yards. And so this was definitely a game in the margins where the Bills are able to find a win on special teams with their punt game and in their kick return game.
Joe, to Joe Brady, you mentioned a credit to him there. Since Houston, have you seen him inventing more answers, creating more things? I'm thinking about the one play they ran to Dawson Knox where it looks like it's going to be mesh. And right after the Houston game, all we heard was the Bills, they run so much mesh. And here's Dawson Knox running a whip route, kind of a wrinkle off of mesh. What I'm getting at is, like, we keep saying that Allen saves his best for these big games against the best quarterbacks. Is Joe Brady rolling out more complex things, more innovative things, more new things, fresher things in some of these bigger games as well?
Well, Joe Brady a few weeks ago, and it might have been after the Houston game, he was asked about tendencies. And Joe Brady said, well, there are some tendencies that we want. And when he said that, I definitely paid attention to that. And since that moment, you have seen what I believe are the 3 biggest tendencies that frustrate fans, whether those are first down run rate, the mesh concepts in the passing game, or those bubble screens to Khalil Shakir. You have now seen those and Joe Brady counter off of them. You've seen first down play action. It's been a big part of the recipe the last few weeks instead of first down runs. That's a great call out on that Dawson Knox play where it does look like mesh, which is too shallow as that mesh. It wasn't. It was a whip route, and so it becomes an outbreaking pattern. You convert a third and mid, and you wind up scoring a touchdown on that drive. And you could tell, like, the influence of the defense was, hey, it's mesh. Everyone's trying to cap. Well, Knox is going the other way. You get a first down conversion. The other is the bubble screens to Khalil Shakir. They've really reduced. And if you remember the Ty Johnson screen that went for a first down against New England, the first part of that play was faking the bubble to Khalil Shakir back the other way to Ty Johnson for a third down conversion. And so he has done well to take those tendencies and turn them into opportunity as teams are keying in on certain things. And so curious to see how that continues. Obviously, a lot of football left. You can only save so much, but now what's the counter to the counter? I think that's the next phase of the counter punches in these schemes.
This week it's Bills-Browns. We know Myles Garrett can be a game wrecker. He did, however, have 5 sacks in a game they lost. right? So feels like he might get his, but the Browns, I mean, Shedeur Sanders, it is not really going all that well. You might get the occasional highlight or some stats against the Titans, but I mean,
they've got a nice young running back.
They have a nice young,
but their rushing stats on the season as a team aren't great.
They don't really run it that well. Like, Joe, this is a game that if they were to lose this somehow, you put it on the short list of worst losses of the McDermott era. Like, this is a game that, of course, they should have.
No, absolutely. I have very high expectations for the Bills against the Browns. It's an offense that really just struggles. They really do struggle. They don't do much well offensively. They have some good young playmakers. I like Quinshon Judkins at running back. Harold Fannin looks like a great young tight end. But Shedeur Sanders, like you said, there's been a highlight, but mostly he's been deplorable. He's 30th in turnover worthy. And since he took over as a starter, right? So the last 4 games, 30th in turnover worthy throw rate, 29th in catchable ball rate, 31st in completion percentage over expectation, pressured on 50% of dropbacks. It's the 3rd highest. He's got the slowest trigger in the league by far at 3.17 seconds. I mean, you got to keep this guy's head spinning. And they have a good running back, but I think they're probably down at least 3 starters on their offensive line. And I mean, it's a game where I have high expectations for this Bills defense. Obviously, the Cleveland Browns have a very good defense, but eventually complementary football just makes it impossible for a defense to hold up. Now, look, it is Myles Garrett. He's a heck of a player. They've got other talent. They got a really good front. They're a good pressure defense. They have several good linebackers. Their secondary is good. I think it's at least a playoff caliber defense, but that's the type of game where, hey, don't force anything. Don't beat yourself. If you punt, it's fine. Stay in it and make your plays. But, expectations should be high for Buffalo on the road this week to take care of their business.
Joe Marino of the Locked On Bills podcast. Joe, any thoughts on the Sabres GM change? I know you're a Sabres fan at heart, right?
I've really tried to get into the Sabres over the last few years because I want to like it. It just hasn't been very fulfilling. So my attention doesn't stay, and so I'm excited for some change. I don't know much about his background, but at least it felt like, as somebody who does I analyze sports, it felt like the retention of this Kevin Adams was unjustifiable. So I'm excited to see some new leadership and hopefully they can pull some strings because, oh man, if the Bills and the Sabres were good at the same time, I mean, what a time to be alive.
What would we do? Yep. All right, Joe. Thanks very much. We'll talk next week.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Joe Marino, Locked On Bills podcast.